I'm Arielle Hartman, and I'm a student with the Community Mushroom Educator Training with Cornell University and Farm School NYC. And today we're going to inoculate a raised bed with red wine cap mushroom spawn. Red wine cap mushrooms are really resilient and easy to grow mushrooms. You can grow them outdoors in raised beds, and you can grow them at the same time as other plants growing in your garden. So it's a really nice way to double your yield in your garden or add something that would create a symbiotic relationship with the other plants growing in your garden. So what we're gonna do today is talk about what red wine cap mushrooms are, how to select the space that you're growing in, what kind of materials that you want to grow on, when to plant, and how to care for your raised bed in order to get a fruiting of mushrooms. So the two basic materials that you need are your substrate, so that's the thing that your mushrooms are growing on or actually eating in order to grow, and your mushroom spawn. For red wine cap mushrooms, you can grow them on either hardwood wood chips, so that's what we have here. Hardwoods include maple, oak, magnolia, elders, boxwoods, things like that. But you can also grow them on straw. The planting instructions are slightly different, but they're essentially the same. The care is a little bit different, but you can also combine your straw and your wood chips and kind of try to get the best of both worlds. I guess the other material you need is space, and today we're using my perennial herb raised bed in my backyard. Just a little overview on fungi in general. I think getting to know the different types of fungi out there and their purpose and their mission, it gives you a little bit of an idea of how they grow and where they grow, and kind of gives you that fuller picture of them in the ecosystem. The fungi kingdom is separated into three different categories. One is mycorrhizal fungi, which form beneficial relationships with the plants around them. The second are parasitic fungi, which actually take their energy from the host plant and actually kill them and decompose them further in order to grow. And then the third is saprotrophic fungi, which are decomposers, and they grow on dead or decaying matter and break them down further in order for new plant matter to grow. And red wine cap mushrooms that we're growing today are saprotrophic mushrooms, saprotrophic fungi. So they will be breaking down the wood chips here in order to grow, and we'll be breaking them down and releasing those minerals back into the soil. Red wine cap mushrooms, they look similar to button mushrooms, like small cremini or button mushrooms, but they have a white stem and if they're grown in a shady environment like a red wine, hence the name, a burgundy cap, but when they're exposed to sun, that cap turns like a pale tan or brown. They can be as small as button mushrooms, but actually can grow quite large and are often called king stropharia mushrooms or garden giant mushrooms. They're delicious. They taste like asparagus. When thinking about your site for your red wine cap mushroom bed, shady is always best. So red wine cap mushrooms really thrive in shady, moist environments. Think about, like the forest floor, shaded out by trees. But I am trying to cheat that here because I have a full sun garden, as you see. But I'm trying to cheat that by growing it in a bed with really tall perennials. So I have yarrow planted in there. I have a exponentially growing rosemary that is growing bigger by the second. So I'm hoping that the plants that I have growing simultaneously with the wood chips will be enough to provide some shade for the mushrooms growing in the wood chips. If you don't have such a shady spot in your garden, you can do something similar with taller annuals or taller perennials, or think about putting your mushroom bed on a site that's around trees or taller bushes or something like that. Next, we're going to talk about substrate selection. So since our red wine cap mushrooms are decomposers, they need an ample supply of dead matter in order to grow. I have a big pile of hardwood wood chips in order to make that happen. When thinking about your substrate, it's important to have different size pieces because you're kind of thinking about food for now and food for later. The bigger pieces of wood are helpful in terms of sustaining the mycelium for later, but it does take them longer to digest and fully decompose in order to grow. And the smaller pieces of wood are, don't take the mycelium very long to digest, but a lot of small pieces compacted together don't leave a lot of room for airspace and ventilation, which can cause anaerobic bacteria to take over and actually crowd out the mycelium from growing. You do not need to sterilize or pasteurize your wood chips when you are inoculating red wine cap mushrooms. That's different for other types of fungi, but red wine cap fungi are pretty strong, pretty resilient, and are pretty good at fighting off other fungi and bacteria that might be growing on the substrate already. Site prep is pretty simple, similar to preparing a raised bed for planting vegetables or annuals or anything like that. Clearing away plant debris, weeds, anything like that is pretty important because again, we're trying to give the fungi, the mycelium that we want to grow, in this case the wine cap mushrooms, a fighting chance to grow. And having other types of debris with it, having crowded materials around just gives more opportunity to competing bacteria and fungi, gives them a chance to grow. So we want a clean space, clean work environment. I did this beforehand, so weeded everything, cleared the bed of plant debris except for the perennials that are already planted there. So I think we're ready to go. So step one is to break up the mushroom spawn that you've got in your bag and get it prepped for inoculating your bed. So mycelium is basically the starting, when you're growing mushrooms, mycelium would be the starting point of your mushroom growing process. So mycelium is the part of the mushroom that grows underground. So whereas the mushroom is the fruiting body that we can see, similar to a tomato fruit or a cucumber that holds the spores or the seeds, the reproductive part of the mushroom, mycelium is the part that we can't see, and it's constantly growing in all directions and doing that digesting, doing that, if we're talking about saprotrophic fungi, it's doing that digesting, decomposing that material in order to grow further out and searching for more resources and food. And then when the conditions are right, sends up mushrooms in order to reproduce. So right now I am breaking, so mycelium or spawn can come in many different forms. People grow mycelium or spawn, on grains, on sawdust, on agar. There's liquid cultures. There's a lot of different ways in order to get that spawn. In this case, this looks to me like sawdust spawn. And so what I'm doing is I'm breaking it up into more of a dust. So I'm breaking it up in order for it to cover the most surface area and touch the most materials in order for it to grow. So now it's time to inoculate. This technique for doing red wine caps in raised beds is extremely simple. It uses the lasagna gardening technique or layering technique, if anyone is familiar, which basically means we are going to layer our substrate with our spawn in alternating layers until we run out of mushroom spawn. So first I'm going to take a layer of wood chips. I'm going to start with a layer of our substrate, which is wood chips, do a 1-inch layer across the raised bed, then a layer of mushroom spawn, another layer of wood chips, another layer of spawn until I run out of mushroom spawn. I'm going to finish with wood chips, so the top layer should be wood chips to keep the moisture and also to keep out contaminants. So after we layer everything, we're going to water the bed really, really well. And you want to keep that water, or you want to keep the bed moist for a few weeks in order for the mushroom spawn to grow. And that's basically it. So now I'm going to start with my substrate layer. I'm going to grab a handful and kind of like salt and pepper and just kind of sprinkle it across the top surface of my substrate. Try to actually get it on the wood chips, not on the plants. Not such a dense layer, but I think you're building up as you go so that all the different layers of spawn are touching the different layers of substrate, and that helps the mycelium to grow. You're thinking about surface area. So now I'm gonna do my second layer of wood chips, my substrate, and pile that on top. Is layer number 2 of spawn. This might actually be the last layer of spawn. final layer of wood chips. So now that I finished layering my substrate and my spawn, the only thing left to do is water really well. So I'm just running everything over with a hose. I'm going to really try and saturate everything because remember we have a lot of layers of really thick wood chips, so I want to make sure that the water reaches down to every level. So I'm going to spend a lot of time watering. After this, maintenance for our mushroom bed is pretty simple. It's only really hands-on for the first couple of weeks when I'll be watering it once a day, trying to keep it moist for the first few weeks to make sure that the mycelium has a chance to start running through the substrate and eating everything up and growing. But after that, I'm really going to leave it alone and let it do its thing. So let's talk about, I guess, timing for red wine cap mushrooms. So depending on your climate, depending on the timing, time to fruit could take anywhere between 4 weeks and like 6 to 10 months. So it really depends on your climate and the time of year. So if I were doing this in the spring and it was starting to get warmer, a springtime planting could give you a fruiting in about 4 weeks or a little bit longer. So, springtime planting could give you summer mushrooms or fall mushrooms. But since we're planting these in the fall and it's getting colder, it's going to take a little bit longer for these mushrooms to grow, so we're really not going to get a fruiting until summer or spring at the earliest. It's really environmental cues that tell the mushroom or the fungi to fruit. So like I was saying before with the mycelium, so the mycelium is going to be that underground growth that we can't really see. It was that white stuff that was wrapped around the spawn that I had in the bag. So that's what'll be growing throughout this entire bed. But certain environmental factors tell that mycelium that it's time to fruit, that it's time to create a mushroom that will create spores in order for it to reproduce. And those environmental factors are a heavy rainfall or a drop in temperature. So sometime in spring or summer, after there's been either a heavy rainfall or some type of cold snap, that's when I'll come out here and try to see if I'll have some red wine cap mushrooms fruiting. Once your red wine cap mushrooms start to fruit, you could get a few harvests throughout the season. So that's really exciting. It's a really prolific and high-yielding mushroom. It'll keep digesting the substrate that you've added to your raised bed, but you can add new wood chips each year to give your mycelium a fresh source of food if you'd like. And it's recommended to retire your wood chips or replace your wood chips and your spawn completely every like 2 to 3 years or so. I'm really personally excited about wine cap mushrooms because they can grow simultaneously in a raised bed with my other plants. I'm doing this in a raised bed that I filled with clean soil, and I'm growing perennial herbs in there. and I kind of like the idea of doing red wine cap mushrooms in here because I was already going to use some type of mulch to dress my perennials in order to keep them warm and make sure that they stay alive through the winter. And so this was a way that I could, you know, use that mulch and make that mulch work for me and get something out of that mulch. And that way, and then the second part of that is that the red wine cap mushrooms are, again, digesting the wood chips and releasing some of those minerals back into the soil. So they're actually providing nutrients for my soil as well. One thing to note, so if you're doing it in a raised bed as well and you are intending to eat these mushrooms and again eat the plants that you're growing, it's always recommended to bring in clean soil and use some type of raised bed or container to create a barrier between the soil in the ground and your clean soil. If you are doing this in an in-ground bed or in some type of tree pit space or something like that, by all means try and experiment, but it's not really recommended to eat those mushrooms, but you can definitely use it as an experiment or some type of nutrient sustainability plan for your garden. And that was inoculating raised beds with red wine cap mushrooms. Thanks for watching.